Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? This is the King of Uncool bringing you episode 8 of Fairy Tale Wiki Twitter Talk. Today we have a special guest. We've got Gilgamesh joining us. He's a member of the new Fairy Tale Discord server, and he's also, of course, a Fairy Tale fan. So let's give him a hand. Gilgamesh, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. And yourself?
I'm doing good too. Thank you for asking. I'd just like to say thanks for joining us. Really appreciate having you on so we can get a chance to talk.
Thanks for having me. When Spidey told me about the whole Wiki Talk podcast idea, it was quite nice. I've been following it a little bit. You obviously linked me a couple of the previous ones, and they were really interesting to listen to. It's a great thing that you guys are doing, and it's actually really interesting to listen to everyone's viewpoints.
I'm glad to hear you think so. I mean, that's the whole point of us doing this, that we get to listen to other fans, talk to each other, and know what each other thinks about the series and what we have, in common and where we differ as well.
For sure, when you try and talk about it in Discord, obviously everyone's got varying opinions, and you get the odd person who doesn't like an opinion, and it becomes a bit of an argument for obvious reasons. Sometimes it's entertaining, but sometimes you just want to know what someone thinks and just move on.
Exactly. And that's why I try to keep these things informational. I'm here to talk to you, get your opinion. We're not here to, debate. There's a time and a place for that.
Exactly. And you did a great job of it, man. Well done.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate the feedback. So let's just get right into it. You're a Fairy Tale fan, so how'd you get started in it?
It's a bit of a not a morbid story, but I had a bit of a rough breakup back in about end of July. And a few of my really good friends, they've always talked about Fairy Tale, and the amount of episodes, I was like, it's a lot to get into. I mean, I grew up with Dragon Ball Z, so I mean, I'm no stranger to a heavy amount of episodes. But when you're working, you just don't have the time to watch. I was like, I don't, it's too much. But then I was off for the weekend, and I thought, oh, you know what? Let's just try it out. Watched the first episode, the absolute chaos that ensued. I loved it. Second episode comes along, same thing, and then you start meeting the guild. And the entire wholesome vibe that it gave from episode 1 onwards, I loved it. There wasn't anything I didn't love. And I wasn't in a great place. And it kind of brought me back. It made me feel great again. It made me actually happy again. I was talking to my friends about it as each episode happened. I was relaying to them all my reactions. And that's how it got me into it. And I was watching about 4, 5, 6 episodes a day in between work. And then it got to a point in weekends I was watching close to 20 episodes a day, so about 60 episodes a weekend. And that's how I got into it. It was really all that. It was just the whole wholesome aspect, the friendship aspect, as well as the characters.
Yeah, it's quite a story, especially that part about how you were not in a great place, but Fairy Tale kind of brought you out of it. And that's actually a pretty consistent theme I've been noticing throughout these interviews, because there are a couple other people I know who have given very similar answers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of people that I've spoken to said the same thing, and it just has that effect. You get people who might not have many friends in real life, so they don't have people to fall on. And Fairy Tale is a great way of making you feel not necessarily included, but you're part of the family, because you learn so much about everyone, even the side characters. You learn a little bit about them, and they may not have the most interaction, but they're there, and they're always going to be part of the guild. They're always a friend that they can rely on.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also got a nice lighthearted aspect without being too silly. And it's got an exciting aspect without being overly serious. And it's a pretty good blend of both things. And it's generally hard for most shows to do that.
Exactly. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It knows what it is. It's good at what it is. It does what it does. It does great. The whole friendship aspect, I know a lot of people don't like that. I'll admit, I didn't like it before I watched Fairy Tale. But it's not like it's thrown in randomly. The whole theme is that if it was something like they're losing a fight, friendship, we win, it would be a bit more annoying. But the fact that literally every single episode they're talking about it, it's a constant reoccurring theme. It's not just this random thing that's thrown out of nowhere. It's coming, but it's coming because it's the theme of the show.
Yeah, the author has talked about this multiple times. This is something that he personally believes in quite strongly, and it definitely comes across in the way that he writes it.
Yeah, and he does it great. He does it amazing. I mean, if you look at Eden Zero as well, same thing's happening. You've got this friendship, loyalty aspect, and he does it well. It's not just a random thing he throws in. It's a constant reoccurring theme. And it's what makes it so acceptable. It makes it so enjoyable.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get into some Eden Zero talk later. But for now, let's get into Fairy Tale specifics. So you mentioned July. What year was this? Was this a recent thing?
Last year.
It was last year. Okay, so quite recent then. You basically started it after everything was already finished.
Yeah. I started when I believe the final season was in this last about 5-10 episodes. I
Mhm.
tried very hard to catch up to try and finish it with everyone else. Unfortunately, I didn't. But even when I'd finished, I joined the Discord and told people I've just finished, and everyone was everyone like was reliving it with me. And it was great. It was a great feeling, a great atmosphere to be in.
Yeah, and it's definitely no surprise that you were not able to complete it with everyone else. But when you were already like 300 episodes in and making that climb upwards, it's totally understandable, you know?
For sure. I mean, I feel like I finished it pretty quickly. I finished it around about October, I want to say, beginning of October. I mean, I was watching about 6 episodes a day. Then I said on the weekends, easy 20 episodes. I could reach up to 60 episodes on a weekend. I didn't have internet for a bit, so I had to download a lot of the episodes. And I think that's when I got through. I went from episode 130 all the way through to 175 in one weekend. I remember that.
Yeah, there you go. That's pretty much the entire first season up until the point where they changed studios. All right, so let's get into some specifics about Fairy Tale. Starting off with the most basic question: who is your favorite character?
Ultimate favorite character has to be Juvia. There's nothing I don't love about her. She's absolutely adorable. Her design is great. She has so many design changes, and each one is so unique, so lovely. I've never fell in love with a character as quickly as I fell in love with Juvia. I mean, as soon as we meet her when she goes off to Lucy, even then I love Lucy as well. But even then I was like, this character's pretty cool. I love the water abilities. I've always been a fan of that kind of ability. Her love for Grey. I'm not a big fan of Grey myself, but her love for Grey is pure and unconditional. You'll never see another character fall in love for someone and have such a reaction and be able to have that reaction for the entire series. I know a lot of people say it ruins her character, but I don't feel that way. I feel like it really brings her out, and it shows the care she has, how much love she has for Grey and the rest of the guild. There's nothing she wouldn't do for any of them. And I mean, her episode 220, without going into too many spoilers, 413 days, is my favorite episode of the entire show. I've rewatched that multiple times, reread it multiple times, and each time it hits me hard. Juvia is just an ultimate favorite of mine and has been since us.
Yeah, it's definitely something I hear about people who really like her, that they love the loyalty aspect and the fact that she's so determined. And even if it is all focused around Grey, it still is clear that if someone else needs her, she will be there for them as well. And I think that's pretty cool. So I'm glad to hear more people express that opinion, because there's a bit of a year mileage may vary with this character, and I understand it myself. But it's opinion at the end of the day. And turning on to a different opinion, who would you say is your least favorite character in the series?
My least favorite. It's very difficult to say. I'd go with the cliche Mest choice. Just with the way he acts and behaves, I just don't like it. But let's go away from Mest. I'll see if I can give an answer that maybe not as common. I'm not a big fan of Lecter, the Exceed. I just no massive reason why. It's just I didn't like the character. Every time he spoke, I kind of just looked at him like, "Can you stop?" And his design as well. I didn't really like the design too much. I felt like the design could have been a bit better. So apart from Mess, I'd say Lecter's probably my least favorite. But again, all the characters, I don't hate any of them. I think they're all pretty great characters. And there wasn't any point where I could say wholeheartedly that this character is absolutely terrible and shouldn't be in the show.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting opinion, because I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that Lecter was their least favorite. I can certainly see him being someone's least favorite if you were talking about Exceed specifically, because Happy is obviously very popular. Everybody loves Frosh or Panther Lily. But Lecter is not really somebody who's considered very appealing. And I think you actually hit the nail on the head for multiple reasons, specifically his design and the way he acts.
Yeah, he's not a terrible character, like I said, but it's just, I don't know. Every time
he's unappealing by design is the way I would describe it.
That's exactly how it is.
Yeah, and it totally makes sense. And it was a while until he was introduced into the series, because he didn't show up during the Grand Magic Games arc, way after the time skip and the Tenru Island arc. So you've already got plenty of other characters by that point that you already like.
Yeah, it's just at that point you have so many characters set in stone. I mean, at that point I had Juvia, Gargiel, Lucy. Those are my three favorite. they were set in stone. And then first shot, I love first. First is great. After Happy is my favorite Exceed. And Lecter, I was just like, no, it's higher time you meet the twins, the dragon twins, and I'm like, they're all right. Rogue was a bit but you're pretty cool. And then Lecter talks, and I'm just like, no, I don't like you.
I definitely see where you're coming from. And turning on to the story aspect a bit, what would you say was your favorite story arc in Fairy Tail?
I've got two answers for this, purely just because there was one arc where I completely fell in love with the show. It was set in stone, and I was like, I'm watching every single episode. And then there was one arc that was really my favorite that I loved the most, that I've rewatched a couple of times. The one I fell in love was Tower of Heaven. You learn about Urza and her background. Urza's this unstoppable rock, this warrior that everyone is so scared of. And you then learn about the history of the Tower of Heaven. You learn about Jalal. And then you realize, Urza's an unstoppable rock. She's this warrior, but, she's like that because of what she went through. You learn about her background, and then throughout the story, you just learn more and more. And Tower of Heaven arc will always be one of those ones that to me, set it in stone for me. Then seeing how Natsu reacts to Urza and Jalal, and seeing how Simon does what he does. I wasn't a big fan of Simon as a character, but I don't want to go into too many spoilers. I'm a big fan of not spoiling things. When he does what he does, it really hit me, and I was like, this is honestly shows no matter how much of a break they had as friends and what happened, they still was loyal, and it was still the friendship aspect that I loved from Fairy Tail.
Yeah, it's awesome. And what was your other favorite? I'm sorry if I missed that.
No problem. The other favorite was Tenro. I love the idea of the promotions. I love how it was so serious, but it was also so silly. I mean, there was the whole marriage thing with Evergreen and Elfman. That made me laugh. But then you had the Guildots and Natsu fight. I'm a big fan of characters showing raw power. And what I mean by that is these characters who are already, from the get-go, we know they're extremely strong. Guildots is an example. Frieza's an example from Dragon Ball. When Gohan went Super Saiyan 2, that kind of idea, that raw power. So when Guildots decided to show Natsu what it really meant to have fear, and he powered up, I sat there just staring at my screen. I was actually watching the episode with a friend, and he was like, are you okay? And I'm like, dude, I have goosebumps. Natsu learning there and then what it felt to have this fear, what it felt like to encounter it and actually deal with it. And Natsu then learnt. I mean, when he fought against Grimoire Heart, each time he fought a new villain, he brought up that what he learned from Guildots. And I've never since that's the first time I've had that raw power feeling since Gohan going Super Saiyan 2 versus Cell, and it was great. It honestly made me feel like I was a kid watching Dragon Ball again. I felt nostalgic. Even though, Fairy Tail's not a nostalgic factor for me because I started it so late, I had that feeling again, and it was great.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the most popular aspects of the Tenru arc is when they had that fight and the character who has up till now kind of just walked through everybody is essentially paralyzed in fear and doesn't know what to do, and learns that sometimes you will not know what you have to do because you are too scared, but you still have to find a way to move forward. And I think it was actually really well done in that fight.
Exactly. It's the idea of you're always going to find someone who's better than you, and you're always going to need to try and go above them. You might never be better than them, but it's all about realizing that you can be better for yourself and be a better version of yourself. So when Natsu learned that, when the final fight of that against Hades, he says it is like fear. Well, we just got to get over it. Let's just do it. And it really hits every character, and I'm sure it hit the viewers at the same point. You can't give up. You've got to keep trying.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So turning on to the opposite end of the spectrum, what were the Fairy Tail arcs which you disliked?
I'm one of the few who probably say that there wasn't any I sat through and hated. Even the filler arcs I enjoyed, and I could sit there and enjoy it for what it was. If I had to choose one, it would be the what's the one called where all the celestial spirits revert to their is it their original forms?
Yes, I do know what you're talking about. It's the Eclipse arc, I believe they were calling it in some cases. It's a fan art. It's a fan titled arc, of course, because it's not from the manga.
Yeah.
But I definitely know the one you're coming from because a lot of people did feel that the arc was overly juvenile.
I enjoyed it for what it was, but it definitely, in my opinion, was the weakest arc. I enjoyed the where Wendy and Aquarius had a little play date. That was an enjoyable scene. Seeing how destructive she is, even as a child. But it was definitely the weakest arc. But I didn't find myself at any point in the show saying, "Oh, can we move on? Can we move on?" Overall, there wasn't every single arc. I did enjoy it for what the arc was.
Yeah, I think that's actually pretty cool that you were able to find something positive in essentially everything you were watching. There definitely aren't a lot of people who do that. And if you find something to be overly negative, that's fine. I'm not criticizing anyone for that. That's totally fair because, again, it's everyone's opinion at the end of the day. But I think it's cool to have like different perspectives, especially with something that is, popular for bad reasons. But if you can still find a something good in it, I think that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, definitely. Look, Fairy Tail gets a lot of hate for obvious reasons that I don't agree with. But again, you get some people that watch anime or watch just TV shows and have a very critical view. Can't fault them for it. There's people who just like that. I myself, if you ask a lot of people in the Discord, that whenever I talk about the shows that I rate the highest, it's usually on an enjoyment factor, how I felt at the time. I'm not the most critical person when it comes to a show. If I enjoy it, I enjoy it. It can be the dumbest story. If I'm sat there laughing, I'm sat there smiling, I'm enjoying it, and I'll recommend it to people.
Yeah, I think that's totally legitimate. That some people, what they think is the best just is their favorite. Some people have that separation between what their favorite is and what they think the quote unquote best is. And I don't think one approach is more valid than the other. I think whatever makes you happiest with the way you explain yourself is what you should go with. And if you're doing it one way or the other, not cool by me. But I'd like to ask you about those other series. So we touched on it briefly, so let's go back to it. What's your opinion so far of Eden Zero?
So I'm a volume reader. In fact, the latest volume, I think it's number 6, arrived on Tuesday, last Thursday, sorry. And I'm loving it. First few chapters, I was a little bit iffy because I'm not a person for space, sci-fi kind of stuff. But as more characters joined, I love Rebecca. Shiki is great. And as the story evolved more, I fell in love with it more. And if it keeps going the way it's going, and by the sounds of it from the people when they talk about it, I avoid a lot of the spoilers for obvious reasons. But when I see people talking about it, it looks like it's going to go to a point where I'm going to like it more than I like Fairy Tail, which I have to say is going to be which is quite a feat for me. But I am loving the story right now. I cannot wait for each next volume. I have to physically restrain myself to read it online on Sorcerer Weekly. I have Kuro in the Discord saying, "Oh, now go and read it." And I'm like, "No, he's like, okay, that's fine." And then other people are like, "No, you need to read it, catch up." And I'm like, "No, come on, don't tempt me. I really want to, but I'm because I want to own the volumes. I want to support. It's the first proper manga series I've bought from the start, and I'm reading from the start, and I'm buying it each time they come out."
I think that's really cool, and I like the added aspect of trying to support the author along the way. I think that there's definitely room for everyone to do that. So, shout out to people who already do that. Thank you for supporting the industry.
For sure. I wish more people did it, but obviously everyone's got their own lives. You don't know what people are going through. Some people can't afford it.
Yeah, for sure.
You can't afford it. That's why a shout out to Spidey with Sorcerer Weekly. It's one of the, everything on there is completely legit. He buys it all himself. And with Sorcerer Weekly being as accessible as it is, I think it's one of the greatest ways to read stuff. And I've been reading some of the other stories on there, and it's great. And every time I go on, I look at Eden Zero and I'm like, I want to catch up, but I can't. I love the story so much. I recommend it every single time someone says, "Oh, what should I read?" Straight out, throw it out there, explain what it's about. And I've actually had quite a few people start it and enjoy it, and then they ended up starting Fairy Tail as well.
I think that's awesome. And yeah, I have talked to Spider-Man. He was one of the guests on a previous episode. Thanked him for his tireless work in trying to bring these stories to everybody. So again, Spider-Man, I hope you're listening. Shout out to you for that. And of course, for Eden Zero and the other series, which you did mention. So let's go on to probably, the most popular one there, I would guess, Fairy Tail 100-Year Quest. How far into it are you so far, and what do you think of it so far?
Again, a volume reader here, so as the volumes come out, I think volume 3 is out right now. I've ordered it. I'm just waiting for it to arrive. It's meant to arrive this week. I am absolutely loving it. In fact, when it comes to Eden Zero, I kind of read through the volume and I can put it down for a few days. Fairy Tail 100, I literally cannot. I once I start reading it, I don't stop. There was one day where I started reading about 11 p.m. I'll read a few chapters. I ended up reading all the way through to about 3 a.m. And I was like, oh, I've got work in 3 hours. That was a bad idea. I'm loving it. It makes me feel like Fairy Tail's back to what it was. Because a lot of people might agree, Fairy Tail kind of went a little bit downhill, but right now it feels like it's just peaking again. It's spiking right back up.
Yeah, it's definitely something I hear, and especially when it comes to the pacing of Fairy Tail 100 Year Quest in particular, because everything's going so fast, given the plot for those who are already aware of it up to date. We've already dealt with one of the dragons. We're currently dealing with another one, but we know who some of the other ones are. If this had been the original series, there's no doubt that this would have been spread out over a much longer period of time. And I think the idea of making it faster is interesting because I don't know how long this will last, and I don't know if he even has any other plans for later arcs or even future sequels. Who knows, right?
It would be great if he does. Obviously, with the pacing of it, I personally quite like the pacing. I know some people have mentioned they feel like it's a bit rushed. I completely disagree. I like, because they're in a situation where it's a quest that's been there for a while and they need to get it done, and there is a bit of a sense of urgency, and the pacing of it being quick, to me, it kind of plays on that. There's a sense of urgency and that they need to get it done. I understand that some people want it spread out a little bit more, take a bit more time. I honestly, I love the pace that's going at right now. It makes me feel engaged all the time. I don't have to worry about too much talking. I enjoy the talking, but I know there's a fight coming up soon. And it's great. And you're meeting all these new characters and all these new villains. And they're just so creative and they're so great. The first dragon that we meet, obviously I won't say spoilers. First dragon we meet, I absolutely fell in love with it. And I love the design. I've got a few wallpapers of it colored from a few of my friends who do art.
Yeah, that sounds cool. And I definitely agree. He did look very impressive, that first dragon whom we saw.
It's one of my favorite designs so far, I think, of 100 Year Quest that I've got to. Once I get the volume 3, when I read through it, I like to take pictures of my favorite ones, and then I send them to some friends and they say, look, can you guys draw this? And usually they do it for free because they enjoy doing it. And it's just great. I'm loving it. It's something I look forward to it comes out every 2 or 3 months, the volumes. I pre-order
it's
it.
Every 2 weeks for the chapters, every couple of months for the volumes. The volume schedule will be longer than normal because it's a bi-weekly manga, but it's just to be expected.
Exactly. I mean, that gap between the volumes, it is absolute chaos for me because I want to join in the conversation, but I'm loving reading those volumes come out. I've got this problem where if I read ahead, I can't justify myself buying the manga apart from wanting to support. But then the problem is I want to read it as a volume. I did the same problem with Seven Deadly Sins. I caught up on the manga. I was like, cool, I'm going to go buy it. Never bought it.
I think a lot of people have that problem because once you already know the story, it's like, are you motivated to continue buying it? In most cases, probably not. And I feel like that is understandable. I mean, if you do, great, but it's hard to fault people too. And it is just what it is. But you mentioned Seven Deadly Sins, so let's turn the topic a bit. What are some of your other favorite anime that you like? I'm gonna go on a bit of a limb here and assume that you like the Fate series, given your name. But yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about your favorite shows?
Fate series is one of my. Remember I said earlier about having a critical idea and then I want to enjoyment.
Certainly.
With the critical side of it, Fate is one that is number one for me. It's so far up there. You can ask anyone in the Discord. I can't go like more than 10 minutes out mentioning something about Fate, even if it's like out of like just randomly. And I absolutely love it. I've got so many people in the Discord to go and watch Fate, and they're all enjoying it. The idea of I don't know if you watched Fate yourself, Uncool?
Oh, yes, I have seen the original Fate Stay Night. I've seen Fate Zero and Unlimited Blade Works.
Yeah, so I mean, you know the idea of the story with the war and its different timelines. And as the world of Fate grows, there's just a massive rabbit hole. There's so much to fall into and so much to read. I mean, there's the most recent anime, the Babylonia one, which is all about Gilgamesh. That's come to the top of my favorite animes so quickly that me and my friends just cannot stop talking about it. And that's just where my love for the character Gilgamesh comes in. He's an absolute smug character who does actually love his people. It's call him he refers to them more as treasures. But like, every character in Fate is just enjoyable. The fights are great. The story is great. There's not there's a few plot holes here and there, as expected from a kind of story like this. But most of the time, a plot hole is filled somewhere along the line in another story. A lot of people might say that the plot holes are annoying, but if there's always a fill for that plot hole somewhere, whether it be in another game, in another anime, in another story, even if it's in the mobile game, there is a fill for it somewhere.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, given the medium from which it comes and the fact that it's a series that's based out over multiple forms of media, it's just kind of inevitable. And it's also pretty good to have those other forms of media because it just gets people more engaged. One of my good friends is constantly talking about and playing the mobile games that are Fate based. I don't know them in
Grand
particular
Order.
detail because I don't play them myself, but I think it's cool that he's so invested in it because he was watching the anime before I did, and he was one of the people who got me to watch it. And I totally agree with you. Fate Zero is easily one of the best anime that I've ever seen.
Yeah, Fate Zero is one of my favorite adaptations of Fate. When I first watched Fate, I watched it a little bit out of order. I should have watched UBW first, but I ended up watching Fate Zero first. I loved it. Zero is one of my favorite. I've rewatched it about 3 or 4 times now, both sub and dub. And then the game that you mentioned that your friend plays is Grand Order, so gacha game. The idea is that there's many different singularities, and each one they go through a time period, and history's been messed up, and they've got to try and fix it. And it's great. And it's just one of these worlds where there's just so much to explore, so much to research, so much to learn.
Yeah, it definitely does sound interesting. I mean, I'm probably not going to be playing it anytime soon, but I think it's still cool that they have all this stuff going out because, as you might know, Fairy Tail has its own mobile games as well. They're not as popular as this one seems to be, but I do like the fact that they've got them, and I've used some of the card designs myself for artwork purposes, and I think it's pretty impressive. But yeah, let's talk about some of your other favorite animes. So, what are some others that you're into?
If we look at now the enjoyment side of it, my top anime and has been since I watched it is Violet Evergarden. Completely different atmosphere from everything else that we've spoken about. I'm not sure if you've seen it yourself.
I have not, though I have read about the plot, so I know some scant details.
Yeah, honestly, if you find the time, I recommend you to it. It is on Netflix. It's not that long. The entire story of Violet Evergarden was amazing to me. I mean, you get an introduction of this character, Violet, who comes across, a lot of people come across as like a monotone, boring character, the way she addresses other characters. But they need to realize that this setup that is there is purely a setup for what happens later on without going into any spoilers. What seems like a really simple premise, there's a rise of a humanity and heartfelt emotion that comes across. She's a blank canvas. I like to say that Violet isn't the main character straight away. I know the show is her name and so on, but she's more of the audience. She's literally a blank canvas. She encounters loads of different characters. Every new encounter adds this another layer of life to her story, another layer of emotion and understanding about how to survive in a social norm. I mean, she's come out of a war where she doesn't understand anything but war. She is just a tool that was used for war and fighting, and now she has to learn to survive in the average day-to-day life. And the writers does such a great job of creating these memorable moments through a subtle recording of different plot points here and there, and they get tied together. The dialogue is like a poetic nature to it, but it's not complex. It's simple, easy to understand. The message gets across, and she learns from every interaction that she has. It adds another layer, and you just see this character build into this amazing, lovable character that no one can hate. And one of my favorite things is every character in the show is designed like a main character. Even the background characters, background characters all look the same, similar designs. Violet Evergarden, every character has its own somewhat unique design. No two characters look too much the same. And the artwork is brilliant, and the colors are brilliant, and the music is just amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like a really strong recommendation right there. I think I'm definitely going to have to give this anime a look. You mentioned that it was on Netflix, so I don't think it would be too hard for most people to get a hold of it.
Yeah, for sure. It's on Netflix. There's the Violet Evergarden series. I think if I recall, it's about 12 or 13 episodes. Then there's a special episode, which you should watch at the end, because it takes place around about episode 5, which gives you a great idea that you've seen Violet grow, and then you watch that special, and it gives you a reminder, it jogs your memory of where she came from to where she got to. Then there's a side story coming out. Actually, it's coming out April, and it's going to go on Netflix as far as I'm aware, 2nd of April, I believe. And then we've got the sequel to it, the second part of the story as a movie as well. That's been released in Japan in April as well. So I assume we'll probably get it second half of this year. I've read the novel, and it's the story is amazing. I cannot wait for that movie. I cannot recommend it enough to people. In fact, it's going to sound a bit funny. I've got a tally of the amount of times I've recommended it to people, and they've decided to watch it with the amount of people that have actually liked it. At the moment, I'm on, let me pull it up quickly. 86 people recommended, and 81 people have loved it, and 4 people have got halfway and dropped it, and 1 didn't like it.
I mean, that's still a very impressive ratio, so it definitely does sound like a worthwhile watch.
Yeah, it honestly is. I cannot recommend it enough.
All right, duly noted. Let's take it from the next one. Do you have any other recommendations you'd like to just toss out there?
Another one's Your Lie in April. It's quite a popular one. I know a lot of people have watched it. I'm not sure if you've seen it yourself.
I actually have, yes.
That there is my second favorite anime of all time. Without going into too many spoilers, a friend of mine was spoiled on it, and he hasn't watched it. When he told me it was spoiled for him, I was very upset. The characters, the whole story, the music in it, I absolutely love the music. Someone in this effect, you know her, Michelle. She's able to play a couple of the songs from Your Lie in April, and whenever I've heard her play, I absolutely love it.
Yes, I'm familiar with Michelle's musical talents.
She's extraordinary when it comes to her music, and whenever I've heard her play, I think I've heard it twice now, or 3 times. I've heard her play through the mic, and it's honestly great, and it gives me an amazing feeling. The show was excellent, and I know it has a special place in her heart as well. And there isn't a single character in that show that I didn't love. Single design, single song, single scene. The entire show, I've rewatched it multiple times. In fact, in April, another person in Discord, Joe and I, if we can find some time, we're going to try and binge watch it as a rewatch. Hopefully Michelle will be able to join us as well.
Yeah, hopefully so. So let's turn to the final topic I want to bring up, and then we can maybe just open it up for some free talk. You mentioned that you run a Pokemon D&D server with the fairy tale as something of a subtopic. So could you explain a little bit about that for people who don't know about it?
Okay, so for those of you who don't know what D&D is, it's just this, you could call it a tabletop game. You can do whatever you want in it. There's a story, you create a character. Your character can be a magical character, just a normal day-to-day swordsman. You can even create a complete homebrew. My friend played where there was he was a dad. His class was called Dad, and he made dad jokes all day, and it was great fun. That's the love that D&D is. You can honestly do anything you want in it, and the rule set itself, it's so diverse that it's up to the person running the game how they want to interpret it. So the one that we have, it's a play-by-post, so everything's text-based. You based all on Pokemon. It's a massive homebrew that's been made by someone called Joe the DM. Pokemon have been turned into monster stat blocks. There's a whole trainer class, and you create your character, you choose your starter Pokemon, you load it into the bot, which is very simple. Within our server, people are always there to help and teach you how to do it. And you then play through, at the moment, we've only got the Johto region up. For those of you who know about Pokemon, it's one of the regions. And you can play through, fight the gyms, take on the Elite Four. We've got the contests available in there. And we've got a massive overarching story. And the overarching story is that the world almost came to a brink of destruction due to someone called Sucra, is basically the evil version of Arceus, the Pokemon god. And within the world, we've got 2 guilds. One is Golden Warriors, one is Fairy Tail. And when I made the Fairy Tail guild in the server, the server's run by, it's owned by my friend Oni, and I'm kind of a second-hand man. I made that guild to be based off of Fairy Tail itself. I tried to change quite a few things up to fit what we had to do with the story. For example, some people might not like this, but Zeref is the guild master just purely because he's my Elite Four NPC as a dark trainer. And I've made it to a point where it's as easy as it was to join Fairy Tail in the show. It's the same in there. He's got the Golden Warriors. You've got to go through a really grueling process with your RP. With the Fairy Tail, it's a lot simpler. There is an RP aspect to it, but it's very simple, and it's enjoyable. And I keep the Fairy Tail guild as close to the show with how it feels, the family aspect, and being able to interact with loads of different people. I mean, I've got Mira Jane in there doing everything that she does from the show. I've got Mavis that was there for a bit as well. I even used the whole Lumen Histoire thing to regenerate the Arceus when it was trying to heal. So if you do enjoy Pokemon, you enjoy D&D, or even if you haven't played it before, either of them, let me know, hop in, and we can get you started. It's a little bit of reading at the beginning, but once you get going, it's enjoyable. The community is great. It's very active. We have days where it's quiet, but it's honestly a great environment. It's very fun. It's very self-led. There isn't necessarily a need for someone to guide you the entire time when you're playing. You will only need someone when you need to do something very specific.
Yeah, it definitely does sound like a lot of fun, especially if you like all those different aspects. What inspired you to originally get started with this project?
So I started D&D last May, I think it was. And my friend Win, shout out to him, was our first DM in my group. My friend Lilo is the person who brought up that we should all try it. And Win was our first DM. He put up with our shenanigans. And we spent about 45 minutes arguing about if a boat would float in a certain situation underwater. He just sat there and let it be. And then I found the Pokemon one. Pokemon is something I have loved since I was a child. It's something I will always love. And I saw Pokemon D&D and I'm like, D&D? Pokemon. Two things I love. Let's put them together. Got used to the system. My friend Oni messaged me. He was like, listen, when you got more used to the system, let me know. So I did, and he invited me to the server that he was creating, which is the Johto region, and he had me help build it up. And I think he started building it in about June, I think it was. And then we finally had beta in October and launched in November. And it was a lot of hard work, a lot of coding we've got a shout out to Richie, who does a lot of coding, who puts a lot of work into making sure everything is as automated as possible. All the DMs that we have do a lot of work. They're always there for us. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to run. And the players themselves, they create such a nice atmosphere where you can always interact with someone at some point. And getting into it was just seeing this world grow that we built. The story, we kind of just kept going. We just made it up as we went along. And eventually we started creating the story that made sense, and we were molding it. And Oni and I were messaging saying, what if we did this and this and this? And then we messaged a couple of the other admins and what if we did this? And then seeing the players themselves react. I mean, there was one time where one of the admins was fighting Giratina, which is basically the devil of Pokemon, a demon of Pokemon, the owner of the underworld. And we would ping the entire Discord with the role that we have for all the trainers. So everyone's Discord obviously gets a ping, and as if the world is shaking. And everyone in general chat was like, what is going on? Why are we all being pinged? What's shaking? So seeing all the players grow and love this world that we've created is what really keeps us going. Sometimes it can be a lot of tedious hard work, but it's the fact that the players see it and they love it is what keeps us going. And it's the reason we do it.
You know what? That's something I totally 100% relate to. That's precisely how I got started on Fairy Tale Wiki back in the day. I just showed up, thought I'd make a couple of edits here and there, help out when I could. And I just found myself eventually doing pretty well at it, getting asked to help out. I liked the people that I was with, and we had ideas. And then I got asked to be heads of, this or that, and involved in admin work. And eventually it just became exactly what you said. It was a fun project, but it's also great to see how everything is, relied upon by the people who are part of it. We've got, fan fiction writers who come by to read the story so they can get a condensed view of the content of the series, so they don't have to read 150 plus chapters to understand certain events. We've got people who just want to talk to other fairy tale fans. We had people want to share their opinions, all kinds of people, and that's one of the best things about community. And I know Spider-Man feels the same way about the Discord community that he's been working so hard these last couple of months to create.
Look, I'll give a shout out to Spidey here. Spidey, I'm sorry for the drama and trouble that you and me have butted heads with. I really am. But honestly, with Hannum Heart, I've never seen a more hardworking person. I've never seen someone work so tirelessly and with so much dedication to create this amazing community. I mean, there isn't a single day where I don't, wake up and hop on and talk to people, whether it be, with the majority of the people being in America, the time zones are a little bit off, and it's quiet in the morning, but we've got a handful of people. There's the same 6, 7, 8 people in the morning for me, and they're always a joy to talk to. And honestly, Spidey, you as well as Air and the other mods have done a great job with keeping the community as it is, and then also bringing everyone together. Michelle, well done for working to get the wiki in there and working to with Spidey to bring everyone together. The other thing with Sorcerer Weekly lot, I don't know a lot of you, but all of you do such great work. I don't read too much of the Sorcerer Weekly stuff. Obviously, like I said, it's volume only. But when I do look back at some of them and I'm looking for some screenshots that I want, you can't help but notice how much hard work goes into it. It looks pretty. It looks professional. It looks so, what's the word? Elegant. And it's just so accurate.
Yeah, no, you're totally right about all that. The hard work, the commitment. Shout out to Spidey, Michelle, and everybody else who's been involved in this project. We're all here at the end of the day talking to each other because of you guys.
Exactly. I mean, if it wasn't for the tireless work, the community wouldn't be what it is now. Same to the rest of to the Discord users themselves, having creating such a nice atmosphere and community that we have. It's always a joy to talk in there. Even when there's a bit of an argument going on, it's always still, it gets resolved pretty quickly. There isn't anyone in the Discord that is too much of a headache. I know I'm a headache for Spidey, but overall, there's always a nice conversation to be had in there, whether you're talking just in general, you're talking in one of the anime or manga sections. It's always a nice conversation to be had, and it's a very nice atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's a headache for somebody else. That's just kind of an inevitable part of life, but if you're having fun, at the end of the day, don't take away anyone else's, and everything is good.
Exactly.
All right, man. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to talk about?
No, not necessarily. I think that's about it.
That's about it from my end as well. So I'd just like to say once again, thank you for joining us here. I'm really glad that I got a chance to talk to you and learn more about you, and that you applied for this as well. I hope you've had a good time.
Yeah, it's been great fun. This is the second time I've done something like this before, and this one was a lot smoother than the other one I did. And it was great. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. And I do hope you get more people to apply for it. I know that Spidey pinged me to get in because he knows I like to talk a lot because I never stop talking. If you ask anyone on the Discord, I talk too goddamn much. But yeah, thank you very much. And it was a great fun.
I'm glad to hear you think so. And yeah, I have seen you pop up every once in a while in the chat quite frequently. But if you enjoy talking, it's all the better for me to have you on. And I do hope more people apply. I hope somebody else sees the application form, fills it in. I'll definitely be sending it out on Twitter and probably in the Discord chat a couple more times. So, shout out to everybody who's part of the Discord and following us on Twitter. Really glad to have you guys part of our community. And with that, I'd send you off. So everybody, take care.
Take care, everyone.